only Mr. Andy Gabriel. Andy, take a bow. Let's hear a round of applause for Andy. He's working with me today. And here is a call to action by the House of Representatives Committee on Constitution Review. Quote, "Our Constitution is not merely a legal document. It is the foundation upon which our democracy rests, the guardian of our rights and freedoms, and the blueprint of our collective aspirations. Yet, as we confront the realities of the 21st century, it is evident that our Constitution is in need of reform to meet the evolving needs and challenges of our society," unquote. It's time for dialogue, for consultation, for change, for participation in the reform process, for engagement with the reform process, and to promote the unity and inclusivity of every citizen of this nation. We must therefore work tirelessly to realize the promise of Nigeria, of the people, by the people, and for the people. And there is in your program a place where the Constitution Review Committee will receive and respond to your constitution concerns, and you must check out that website. Having brought to you the call to action of this esteemed committee that tells us how it is important for Nigeria to continue to evolve and for us to continue to engage in this process, please permit me to take a moment to present a kaleidoscope of quotes that are important. Our Constitution is a ray of hope. H for harmony, O for opportunity, P for people's participation, and E for equality. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister, India. The glory of justice and the majesty of law are created not just by the Constitution, nor by the courts, nor by the officers of the law, nor by the lawyers, but by the men and women who constitute our society, who are the protectors of law and are themselves protected by law. Robert Kennedy. On that note, I'd like to invite Andy to let us into how proceedings are going this morning and who is speaking first. Andy, you've got the floor.
Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, Your Excellency, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, permit me to stand on the already established protocol. Just as we move on, the question begging for answer on the minds of very many of us and even those watching from home is, why is the review of a constitution important? The review of a constitution helps to establish a model that actually takes to answer yearnings and aspirations of a people. And that is particularly why this is very important. And so moving on very quickly with the programs of event, it is pertinent at this juncture to then invite the man who's been bestowed with the responsibility of chairing the Committee of the House of Representatives on the review of the Constitution, His Excellency, the Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie-Kalu, who doubles as the chairman and also Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, to then come and set the tone for this very important meeting. If your hands are not as busy, I'd like that we please give him a very resounding applause as he makes his way to the podium. Your Excellency, the Deputy Speaker, sir.
Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, my boss, my brother, my friend, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, the traditional rulers, the diplomatic corps, please permit me to stand on the well-established protocol. Our very own Eugenia Abu, who did a good job just a few minutes ago. Today marks an important moment in the history of our great nation as we convene for the inauguration and citizens' engagement of the House of Representatives Committee on the Review of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Our Constitution, the foundation of our democracy, stands as a testament to our collective aspirations for a just, equitable, and prosperous society. Yet, as we confront the realities of the 21st century, it is incumbent on us to recognize the imperative for constitutional reform, to ensure that our laws reflect our people's evolving needs and aspirations. As James Madison, the father of the American Constitution, once eloquently stated, the Constitution of a republic ought to contain within itself provisions for its own improvement as time and circumstance may require. Heeding this wisdom, we must embark on this reform journey with open minds and hearts, acknowledging the dynamic nature of our society and the need for our governing documents to adapt accordingly. As we gather here today, it is important to highlight the areas that are currently at the forefront based on the bill proposals we have received so far. Some of them include the establishment of state police, state access to mines, increased participation of women in politics, clear specification of the taxes and levies to be collected by each tier of government, and the provision for the office of the Mayor of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, amongst others. Several bills proposals that were passed but did not make the President's assent during the 5th constitutional alteration has been brought back, and they include powers to the National Assembly and State Assembly to summon the President and state governors, and requirements of the government to direct policies towards ensuring the rise to food and food security. This highlights the dynamic nature of the Constitution review process and its salientness to the democratic strengthening of our country. It is important to reiterate that we are willing to accommodate more proposals to enhance our Constitution and strengthen our democracy. In addition, we await executive-sponsored bill proposals that reflect issues on the renewed hope agenda of our very own President. It is also important to note the amendment to the Constitution carried out by previous assemblies, which include but not limited to the financial independence of state houses of assembly and state judiciary, redesignating prisons as correctional services, and then transferring them from the exclusive list to the concurrent legislative list to enable the state's participation, transferring railways from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, enabling states to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity power in areas covered by the national grid is also one of them, and requiring the President and governors to submit the names of persons nominated as ministers or commissioners within 60 days of taking the oath of office for confirmation by the Senate, or State House of Assembly. Saw these come into action when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu submitted his ministerial list 2 days before the deadline, Thursday, 27th of July, 2023. As we move forward, states should commence domestication of these amendments, generate the required results, propel Nigeria towards a brighter future. Thus, the call to action is clear, and the pathway forward is illuminated by the principles of dialogue, principles of advocacy, principles of participation, principles of unity and inclusivity. Let us heed the voices of our fellow citizens from all walks of life and engage in open, inclusive, and transparent dialogue on constitutional reform. Let us bridge divides. Let us build consensus. Let us forge a common vision for the future of Nigeria. We must advocate tirelessly for change, holding our elected representatives accountable, demanding accountability every turn. Participation is not merely a right. It is sacred duty bestowed upon us as citizens of this great nation. Call upon every one of you to actively participate in the constitutional reform process, to lend your voices, ideas, and expertise, to craft a constitution that reflects the values and aspirations of all Nigerians. As John Marshall, one-time American Secretary of State, once said, the people made the Constitution, and the people can unmake it. It is the creature of their will and lives by their will. A Constitution Review Committee of the 10th National Assembly stands ready to embrace the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead, leveraging the power of technology, social media, and inclusive engagement. We will ensure that every voice is heard, every perspective is considered, every citizen is empowered to participate in the shaping of our nation's future. As we embark on this journey, let us draw inspiration from the words of great leaders who have come before us. Let us remember the wisdom of Tafawa Balewa, who spoke of the necessity of unity and collaboration in our effort to build a brighter future. Together, let us reaffirm our commitment to democracy, our commitment to justice, and our commitment to progress, which we pledge to. Together, let us rise to the challenge and build a brighter future for Nigeria, a future that is truly of the people, by the people, and for the people. From this Inauguration Day onwards, I am proud to announce that we will work closely with the Senate to deliver on our assignments within the next 24 months, as stated during our pre-inaugural meeting. Thus, we wholeheartedly seek the cooperation and support of all Nigerians and all friends of Nigeria. This ambitious timeline not only reflects our commitment to expeditiously address the pressing issues outlined in the proposed bills, but also allows Mr. President sufficient time to attend to the alterations for assent away from the busier election preparation time. In conclusion, I urge you to visit www.hccr.gov.ng to engage with the Constitution Review Committee and to contribute your ideas and perspectives to this vital process. I want to emphasize that our doors are wide open for robust and constructive deliberations as we engage today and in the days that follow. Your input, your insights, your perspectives, they are invaluable as we navigate the path towards constitutional reform. Let us approach this task with open minds and collaborative spirit, knowing that together we can shape a future that reflects the aspirations and the dreams of all Nigerians. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you and bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Another resounding applause for the Deputy Speaker who chairs the House Committee on Constitution Review. Thank you very much. I'd like to just mention that the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetohun, is here with us in flesh and blood. Can we please welcome him with a resounding applause? Just as we also recognize my Lord Honorable Justice Oseni Yusuf, the FCT Chief Judge, who's standing in here for my Lord, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Kayode Ariwola, GCON. Please a warm round of applause for him. We also have standing in for the INEC Chairman, Mrs. May Agbamuche Mbu. Would like to welcome you. She is a commissioner with INEC. Thank you very much. After these recognitions, the tone setting has begun, and it is now time for the documentary, Nigeria's Constitutional Reforms, the Journey, the Triumphs, the Gaps. Please let's watch.
Every nation has a constitution or legal framework governing leadership powers, entity responsibilities, and citizens' rights. Nigeria, like others, underwent constitutional changes before gaining independence in 1960. The 1922 Clifford Constitution marked the initial legislative framework in Nigeria's constitutional development. The law, which limited elective representation, was introduced through the establishment of a legislative council featuring a mix of appointed and elected members, along with strict limitations on voting and eligibility for candidacy. In 1946, the Richards Constitution was introduced. Basically, the federal system of government was established with 3 regions: the northern, western, and eastern regions. The demand for a more representative governance structure led to the creation of the Macpherson Constitution in 1951, where the British government increased the number of elected African representatives, even though significant powers remained with the British-controlled central government. Next was the 1954 Littleton Constitution, whose provisions increased the powers of the regions and granted them more autonomy, which constitutes a House of Representatives and a Senate. Finally, in 1960, the country achieved independence through the Independence Constitution, which provided the framework for Nigeria's governance as a sovereign nation. The 1963 Republican Constitution, drafted with optimism and determination, emerged from the Constitutional Conference in Lagos. The law became effective on October 1st, 1963. Despite some progress, constitutional gaps persisted: fueling tensions over representation, regional autonomy, and central-regional power balance. Ethnic and political unrest peaked. In 1966, the military seized power, ending the First Republic. Subsequent coups ensued until General Olusegun Obasanjo advocated for civilian rule. In September 1975, Obasanjo convened a 49-member Constituent Assembly to amend the 1963 Constitution, resulting in the 1979 Federal Constitution's drafting and proclamation. Specifically, it established a presidential system, consolidating the roles of head of state and head of government under an executive president. Additionally, it instituted a multi-party system, mandating parties to register in 2/3 of states, with each state to contribute at least one cabinet member. The Constitution gave birth to the civilian government of President Shehu Shagari. In August 1985, General Ibrahim Babangida sacked the government of General Muhammadu Buhari and choreographed a prolonged period of political transition, culminating in the passage of the 1989 Constitution. Among the provisions of the 1989 Constitution was the introduction of a two-party system with an electoral amendment that discarded the secret ballot system for an option A4 system of voting. Through a national election contested by two political parties, an elected National Assembly existed. In 1999, the country reverted to civilian rule for the first time in over a decade, and a new constitution was imminent. The Constitution reversed the two-party system, restoring a multi-party democracy. Again, the 1999 Constitution provided for a full-time legislature, while recognizing the local government areas as the third tier of government. It, however, provided them with limited autonomy.
By the provisions of the 1999 Constitution, many people, including those who are educated, rightly do not understand that constitutional amendment only emanates from the National Assembly, but it does not end there. We've seen very beautiful amendments where National Assembly has proposed and passed, but it was truncated at the houses of assembly.
Being able to tinker with the Constitution required a lot more consensus than was ordinary. Nigeria is not a monolithic country. The diversity remains strong even to date, and so efforts to or even proposals to amend the Constitution have always faced the challenge of struggle between the different component parts of the country, and sometimes gets contentious.
A document that seeks to regulate the organs of state and creates rights for citizens will necessity be not perfect, and therefore it will require alteration now and then.
The National Assembly has successfully amended and made landmark changes to our Constitution since it was first handed over to Nigeria in 1999. Since then, some of the significant amendments successfully made include judicial reforms, electoral reforms, age reduction allowing younger persons to be appointed into the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) as chairman or resident electoral commissioners, allowing a lower age for contesting into certain elected positions, moving certain responsibilities of government from the exclusive legislative list into the concurrent legislative list to allow for increased federalism, and many more. Even the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan favored a holistic change through the convocation of a national constitutional conference to produce a brand new constitution for the nation. His ousting from power by Muhammadu Buhari's APC administration in 2015 ended the life of its recommendations, at least for now.
We don't have the spine to face what we need to give this republic to have peace and progress. What do I mean?
The obvious gaps or the demerits of the 1999 Constitution have continued to generate controversies, prompting the need for further amendments.
There's no static situation when it comes to constitution. So, because whether I like it or not, as times go on, you will find, the necessity for changes to meet with the reality of the particular time frame.
As we progress, we find out the gaps and we use laws to fill them. That is why it is important that we, an emerging democracy, emerging constitutional democracy, always go back to the Constitution to fine-tune, to prune, to add, to withdraw. So that at the end of the day, the ground number will be a reflection, a mirror of the needs, of the wishes of the people it's meant for.
Nigerians seek constitutional reform to address key issues like establishing state police, transitioning to a parliamentary system, passing the gender bill, unbundling INEC, and enacting fundamental electoral reforms.
We are not here on the frolic of our own. We are here because people, the constituents, asked us to be here. And we are here to be their eyes. We are here to be their voices and to be their ears. So what the people have heard is what we will reflect. Because that's what we will hear. What the people have seen that suits them better is what we're going to reflect. So if decentralization, unbundling of governance at the center to enable the real definition of federalism to be highlighted, that is what the parliament is going to do.
With the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly House of Representatives Committee on Constitutional Amendment, headed by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the race begins again for another round of efforts to perfect the federal constitution and produce a better constitution for a prosperous, united, and egalitarian 21st century Nigeria.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a documentary worth every minute of its 15 minutes, showing to us what is possible, what is to be done, and how we should engage. Your Excellencies, we do have, as you are aware, speakers from across the country of state houses of assembly. And we have Aribasoye Adeoye, Speaker Ekiti, has joined us. We thank you for coming. We have Chigudo S. Ahmed, Clerk, House of Representatives, Kogi State, who is here with us. Right Honorable Udeme Otong, Speaker Akwa Ibom, and the APC National Chairman is represented today by the National Secretary, Senator Dr. Ajibola Bashiru. We also are aware that we have the global diaspora represented here with us. As we heard earlier in the speech of the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, our Constitution should strengthen our democracy. Let us forge a common vision for the future of Nigeria. These are words that are on marble, and they are pretty critical to the work that is at hand. But before we go into discussions and before we begin to engage, and the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker has given us the site where we should go to, and that site has been well mentioned by him, let me quickly say that it's important to me that women are represented everywhere that we are. So I'd like to greet and salute Honorable Onanuga, who is here with us. It's good to see you. Welcome. She is the Deputy Majority Whip. Welcome. At this point, it is important for us to call on someone whose intellectual ability galvanizes the very essence of this inauguration committee today. And we would like to hear goodwill messages, and I'd like to invite my brother and friend, Executive Director, Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, Mr. Clement Nwankwo Esquire, who is making his way to the podium, and I ask you to encourage him. It's a long walk. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eugenia. Your Excellencies, the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Senate President, the Deputy Speaker, distinguished senators, honorable members, Your Excellency, the British High Commissioner, members of the diplomatic community. I guess I'll have to stop here with the protocols, but really to say that I'm especially delighted to have been invited to give a goodwill message on this occasion. I would like to congratulate the House of Representatives, indeed the National Assembly. I do see the Deputy Senate President who chairs the committee in the Senate. Your Excellency, we will continue to work together. But really to say that the National Assembly has clearly shown by this event and hopefully in the coming months and as we go ahead, that there will be an inclusive participatory process, and the presence of civil society groups here in this room is quite good evidence of it. The National Assembly has incrementally amended and altered the Constitution since 2010, and several landmark alterations to the Constitution have happened. These are very important and sit against the context of lots of Nigerians who question how this Constitution came about. But we do know that there is a National Assembly, there are state legislatures, there is a government, and what is prescribed in the Constitution is a procedure to alter the Constitution. And the National Assembly has been doing this since 2010, making very critical amendments in various areas that His Excellency the Deputy Speaker has already outlined. I think what is so very important when you look at the title or you look at what is on the banner there is that these efforts are coming from the Senate, which is no less the People's House. But certainly the People's House, which is the House of Representatives, and the fact that we have seen the National Assembly at different times try to go to the people. I see His Excellency, the former Deputy Speaker, former Governor of Imo State, Right Honorable Emeka Ihedioha, who introduced in the 7th Assembly the People's Consultations and People's Forum that took us to all the 774 local government areas of this country, listening to Nigerians about what should be included in alterations. And it's something that I am so delighted to see both the Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Senate President articulate very clearly a timeline of under 24 months for achieving reform of the Constitution. There are still very serious outstanding issues. Local government reforms remains a major issue in this country, that local governments are subjugated to states and not allowed to deliver on development that is promised when local government reforms happen in this country. We're yet to get those reforms. There is a new debate today about nature of policing. Some say state police. We have to address how this country can be very well policed and how we can deliver on security to our people, such that we do not, in creating state police, hand over the present deficiencies with policing from the national right down to state levels. A state police controlled by governors would not help with our national security concerns. They could, in fact, endanger human rights if we do not clearly define the nature of policing that we are discussing when we talk of state police. There are still outstanding other issues, devolution of powers, electoral reform, and our sister Eugenia talked about women. The special seats for women bill, Your Excellencies, are still pending in the National Assembly. We cannot have a situation where we have just about 16 or 13 women in the House of Representatives and only 4 senators. This is not speaking well of Nigeria at all. If we have a 469-member National Assembly and we have under 30 of these members just women, I think that if the National Assembly was to make a huge statement about this reform, it must clearly define for Nigerians how we can harness the effectiveness and resource that women possess as about equal number of population. So it is something that the National Assembly must consider. Your Excellency, Deputy Senate President, Your Excellency, the Deputy Speaker, how we can make special constitutional provisions to allow for greater representation of women in elective offices proportionate to their population. So there's quite a lot to go ahead with, but I also urge my colleagues in civil society, and I'm quite delighted that a lot of us are here in this room, to engage with this process. The Deputy Speaker has outlined the website that this is, a lot of information is going to be available on. We will, as civil society, engage with the process and hope that this would give us very meaningful returns and reforms within the time frame already identified. I thank so very much the British High Commissioner who is here for the support of the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office over this initiative. The British FCDO has supported constitution reforms in Nigeria since 2010, working with PLAC at the National Assembly. We will continue to give every support to both the work that is being done by the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy Senate President with respect to constitution reform in the 10th National Assembly. Your Excellencies, our traditional rulers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Clement Nwankwo, as always, he has unpacked some of the issues that need to be critically looked at. But what was music to my ear was effective and plenty of resource that women bring to the table. Isn't that beautiful? It is, because we know that we have great respect for our daughters, mothers, and sisters, and that we know that the resource that Nigerian women possess is brimming and ready to run. We appreciate you, Mr. Clement Nwankwo, and for all the points that you have raised. I'm sure those who need to hear it are listening very critically to you. It's time now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to bring up to the podium His Excellency Richard Montgomery, British High Commissioner to Nigeria.
Your Excellencies, good morning. It is still just good morning. Mr. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Deputy President of the Senate, and of course, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, thank you for your speech just now. And of course, representatives of other senior officials here, distinguished senators and honorable members, state representatives, traditional leaders, please allow me to stand on protocol already observed, and forgive me if I've forgotten any particularly honored guests. As a foreign diplomat here, getting the protocol wrong is something that we are all nervous about, so please forgive me if I've made a mistake this morning. Look, I feel very privileged to be here with you today as you commence this all-important process of constitutional review and to witness this milestone event. The breadth of stakeholders attending today is notable. The breadth is also a practical demonstration of the rich diversity that makes this nation such a special country. A diversity which has enabled democracy to thrive, including by deploying the conventions established for the Fourth Republic. And I was very interested to see the short historical documentary reminding us of the journey on which this great nation has been on. I believe, and I hope many believe, that diversity is what makes democracy the best way of balancing interests and values across this nation, and makes Nigeria actually an example for the world in the way in which you do this. The UK and His Majesty's government is truly proud of our valued partnership with this country. I hope that many of you have seen, perhaps from the press in recent weeks, that we are seeking to step up our engagement with this country. Just in the last few weeks, We have signed a joint communique on security and defense. We have signed an enhanced partnership on trade and investment. And we see the federal government as tackling some major challenges with bold reforms which deserve more international support. And we see Nigeria as a key democracy, not just for regional, but also increasingly global geopolitics. So what this Constitutional Review Committee, what this review does, really matters, and it will be watched across the world. And I know that His Majesty, as an upholder of constitutional principles and practice, would like me to send his personal best wishes for your deliberations today and in coming months. He has told me several times how important Nigeria's democracy is for the Commonwealth of Nations. And so I'm very pleased that in a small way, the UK is able to support these types of deliberations. Although, Clement, you were too generous about the role of FCDO, I would like to really emphasize that what we do is support Nigerian experts, such as those in PLAC and other civil society organizations, to provide the research and insight that can help those tasked with debating constitutional issues. It is not for outsiders, such as foreign diplomats, to comment on sovereign concerns of Nigeria or any other country. But we can applaud due process and the quality of participation and any such due process. So I'd like to commend the leadership of the House, the Right Honourable Speaker, the Right Honourable Deputy Speaker, the overall leadership of the National Assembly for the inclusive and deliberative approach adopted for this review process. And Right Honourable Deputy Speaker, you said in your speech, this is about bridging divides, it's about building consensus, it's about politics, which is the art of the possible. So as I highlighted by others, I really will be watching carefully some of the important issues before the committee as you undertake your task. As the Right Honourable Deputy Speaker said, and others, the issues include the devolution of powers, the role, the representation, the participation of women, issues enabling local governments to deliver better services for citizens, and many more proposals from different stakeholders deserving of debate, as is often the case. So as a long-term partner, the UK would like to express our goodwill as you work through these issues, and we'll continue to partner when we're invited to do so. And I know that there are other international partners in the room who are also providing various types of support. And I'd just like to say congratulations again to the House of Representatives, to our partner, the Policy and Legal Advocacy Centre, or PLAC, and to all the stakeholders that have come together to make this event a reality. So I wish you all well in your critical work ahead. Thank you very much indeed.
I'd like to call for yet another resounding applause for Mr. Richard Montgomery. Thank you very much for your charge, and thank you for the enormous support. Let me at this juncture recognize very quickly Your Royal Highness Alhaji Dr. Yahya Abubakar Etsunupe, CFR, and Chairman, Niger State Council of Chiefs. A warm round of applause for him, as we also recognize the APC National Chairman, His Excellency Dr. Omar Abdullahi Ganduje, represented at this occasion by the APC National Secretary, Senator Dr. Basiru Ajibola. Please a warm round of applause for him. We have so very many speakers of state houses, of assemblies here present, and it's going to be a Herculean task wanting to run through this long list because of the exigencies of time. But very quickly, we recognize River State House of Assembly Speaker, Right Honorable Martin Amehule, as we also recognize the Speaker, Ogun State House, Osun State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Adewale Egbedun. We also recognize your presence, A few others that are here: Honorable Haruna Aliyu, Jigawa State, Right Honorable Nasir Yahya, Dara, Katsina State, Right Honorable Tukur Bala Bodinga, Sokoto State, Right Honorable Engineer Danladi Yakubu Salihu, Kwara State, and Right Honorable Adeoye Aribasoye, Ekiti State. And of course, we also have the deputy minority and majority leaders of the House of Representatives here, Right Honorable Abdullah Ibrahim Ali Halims. We welcome you. Honorable Alisa JC PhD is also a minority whip. We'll keep these recognitions at bay as we move on very quickly. And I also want to please join other speakers who are going to be invited to come speak on this podium to please restrict themselves to the 3 minutes allotted, and please, as much as possible, skip protocol so we can move on with the speed that this occasion deserves. It is at this point that I want to yield the podium to the Chairman Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria, the Speaker of your State House of Assembly, the Right Honorable Adebo E. Ogundoyin. Please come forward, take your 3 minutes. Can we please welcome him with a resounding applause as well?
Asked to skip protocol, so I don't have to go through the hard task of ensuring that I do not flout the protocol. But notwithstanding, I would like to specially recognize and appreciate the Speaker of the Federal House of Rep, who is a mentor to a lot of young legislators coming up. We thank you for all you do. Also, would like to recognize the Deputy Senate President, here present, distinguished Senator Barra Jibrin, and the Chairman for the day, the host, and the one that this event concerns the most, the Deputy Speaker for the Federal House of Representatives. You're welcome, and thank you for having us here today. I'll try my possible best to keep this as brief as possible to the 3 minutes that has been allotted to us. It is actually a very great privilege and a great honor for me to be here this morning to give a goodwill message at this epoch-making occasion on the inauguration of the House of Representatives Committee on the Review of the 99th Constitution for the Federal Republic as amended. It is very important to appreciate and to understand the true reflection of the nation, the diversities, the complexities, to better address the current issues and the realities and the challenges of the ordinary Nigerians that we face daily. We must be responsive to the yearnings of Nigeria, especially at this very time. These times are tough, and it's clear to everybody that there's a lot resting on the leadership for the country to make the moves that will definitely make Nigeria better. There has always been and will always be debates and calls for the review of the 99th Constitution. Until we get it right, this debate will go on. Some pundits and citizens alike have called for a review of some parts and some sections of this Constitution, while some others have clamored for a holistic review of the Constitution. I personally have been a true federalist. I support a system of government in which several states unite under a central authority, but in which the states are empowered to address their own challenges and also be able to navigate its own destiny. The latest amendments will no doubt touch on key areas such as devolution of powers, national and subnational restructuring, the resource control, and most importantly, issues of security. On this note, permit me to say that the members of the 10th Oyo State House of Assembly, along with several other state houses of assembly and the speakers are here present, we consider the issue of the state and community police a critical component of national development. Security continues to be a weak area in our local domains where there is no, and we understand that where there is no security, there is no development. Although there could be concern of mismanagement of security operatives by governors, but in the long run, if you look at other models and other countries that practice states policing. We have the United States of America, they practice this system. I'm sure they did not get it right on the first instance, but with time, I'm very certain, with the cooperation of the stakeholders and everybody within, we would get this right. I assure you that through the Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria, all state houses of assembly in the country will collaborate and work diligently and strategically with the House of Representatives Committee on the review of the 99th Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. We will also work studiously and expeditiously to ratify the documents once they have passed down to the states by the National Assembly. I also would like to especially commend this particular committee for taking a proactive measure of starting this constitutional review in such manner in which they have also incorporated the state actors, be it the Conference of the Speakers of State Legislatures and also the executive arm of government and the subnational level. Thank you for this, because in the last time, although we were able to make progress, but it came late and down to the wire. But we believe that this time around, starting early enough, will give us ample time for us to consider the amendments in good timing. It is also important for me to congratulate members of the Constitutional Review Committee and to recognize and appreciate the task before them as important and critical. I wish us all success in the task of aggregating the people's voices by public hearings, public opinions, consultations, and engagements, which are all aimed at having a review that will further help in strengthening our democratic ideas and promoting true federalism. As I end this goodwill message, let us know that the task before all of us, we are all stakeholders in this. It is a huge responsibility, but with the sincerity of purpose, synergy, and patriotism, outstanding results in terms of review of this amendment will definitely be achieved. Thank you all for your time and attention. God bless us all, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also do hope that by the time the Constitution is reviewed and autonomy granted to state houses of assembly, I hope that you will this time around endorse it, and you got to coax your executive governors to please endorse that you have your autonomy. I thank you. Moving on very quickly, Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is the turn of the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Honorable Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, I beg your pardon, who is ably represented here this afternoon to please come, represented by Fernandez Marcus Obiene, Special Assistant to President Bola Tinubu on Justice Sector Reform, to please come forward and deliver the goodwill of the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. If you're here, you have 3 minutes. And please, I'll also crave an indulgence to skip protocol and go straight to delivering his goodwill. Please, a warm round of applause for the representative of the Attorney General.
While I was sitting down there, at the corner, I was struggling to write down all the names of all the protocols so I don't miss anyone. So in that wise, I'm grateful to the MC for excusing me so I don't have to go through the protocol. I apologize on behalf of the minister who ordinarily would have liked to be here, but unfortunately couldn't. It is with great pride that I, on behalf of the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice, welcome you to, extend our warm congratulations on the inauguration so far. This committee is embarking on a momentous journey, entrusted with the crucial task of reviewing and potentially shaping the future and direction of our beloved nation. The Nigerian Constitution, a symbol of our democratic value, deserves ongoing evaluation and adaptation to best serve the evolving needs of our society. Given the caliber of people who are in the committee, There is great confidence that the committee will be successful. It appears from what we have seen that there is a commitment to inclusive engagement, transparent dialogue, and upholding core values of the Constitution. In that wise, we congratulate everybody, and we hope that these core values continue to guide the committee and every other member during the process of the constitutional review. The Ministry of Justice stands firmly in support of the committee and is ready to offer any assistance needed throughout the critical process, including working together with relevant stakeholders to ensure that bills that reflect the renewed hope agenda of His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as well as the collective will of the Nigerian people, are presented. Quoting the Honorable Speaker of the House of Rep, together we can create a future that reflects the dreams and aspirations of Nigerians. May your efforts be blessed with wisdom, and may the outcomes of this review serve the best interests of all Nigerians' generation to come. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the day is fast spent, but the job is being done for such a day as this. It is important for us to remember that the various groups of people in the country are going to be participating in this constitutional reform, and also the House of Representatives Committee on this Constitution review, as you heard much earlier, is led by no other than Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, His Excellency the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. His speech spoke volumes about how much in a hurry he is to get his assignment done. Let's hear another round of applause for the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker and Chair. I'd like to say, like I mentioned earlier, that all the various facets of society are involved, and the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker has invited us all to put our hands on the table and join him in the work ahead. And some of those persons that would be part of that engagement are here with us today. Help me welcome the President of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. YC Mekyeo, SAN. Mr. Olawale Fakbohunda, former Attorney General, Ekiti State, and Chairman, Law Reform Committee, NBA. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome to the podium the representative of His Lordship, Olukayode Ariwola, who is represented by the Chief Judge, FCT, Honorable Justice Hussaini Yusuf.
God bless you. The Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, the Deputy Senate President, distinguished Senator Jibrin Berau, the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives and Chairman Constitution Review Committee, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, very distinguished members of the Constitutional Review Committee, our very revered royal fathers present, representatives of various interest groups at this very auspicious occasion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is the message of the Honorable, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, that I should apologize that he's unable to attend this important event because he's currently administering oath of office to
to the newly appointed justices of the Supreme Court. He has therefore requested me to congratulate the committee, to wish the committee well, and to offer prayerful wishes for a very successful outing on the assignment. Now his speech, which he wrote himself, is like this. It is an honor to be amongst lawmakers determined to provide a platform for a representative and inclusive national dialogue, where relevant stakeholders make input towards an acceptable constitutional amendment, the outcomes that serve the interest of the public, the national integration, security, and welfare of the people, economic prosperity, and the cause of justice without any form of discrimination. It will be recalled that this great House of Representatives and its Senate counterpart worked cooperatively with the executive arm of government between 2010 and 2023, 13 years in number, 5 times on constitutional review effort that gave birth to the first to the 5th constitutional alterations, with a total of 24 Amendment Acts passed into law. On this note, permit me to draw your attention to Section 14, Sub 2B and C of the Constitution. Sub B says, and I quote, "The security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government." And C is to the effect that the participation by the people in their government shall be ensured in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. End of quote. There is no doubting that the committee and the National Assembly has embarked on a very onerous task, but I do not have doubt in my mind that, as difficult as it is, the quality of members of the committee and the determination which appears to have been put in place gives me assurance that at the end of the day, the assignment will be a huge success. Finally, I wish the members of this committee a very fruitful deliberations and a successful constitutional review exercise that is beneficial to all Nigerians and for our collective survival as a nation and people. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Honorable Justice Olu Kayode Aliwola, GCON. Thank you.
Please, another one round of applause for the Chief Justice of the Federation. Speaking through the Chief Judge, Abuja, we thank you. And moving on at this point in time, Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is then the turn of His Excellency, the President of the Senate, Chairman of the National Assembly, who is ably represented here this morning by his brother, friend, associate, and colleague, and of course, a very uncommon Deputy President of the Senate, very distinguished Senator Barau Jibrin, CON, the Deputy President of the Senate. Your Excellency, can we please give him a resounding applause as he speaks on behalf of the President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Dr. Godswill Obot Akpabio, CON. Your Excellency, sir.
Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Sergeant Abbas, PhD, Your Excellency, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives and Chairman of the House Committee on the Review of the Constitution, Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie Kalu, the leadership of the National Assembly, distinguished senators and members of the House of Representatives that are here, the chairman of our party, the All Progressive Congress, His Excellency Abdullah Ganduje, who is represented by the secretary of the party, a former senator, Senator Ajibola Bashir, representative of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, the chairman Conference of Speakers of Nigeria, representative of Chief Justice of Nigeria, former presiding officers of the National Assembly, I can see former deputy speakers of the House of Representatives are here, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, clerk to the National Assembly, the Inspector General of Police, our Royal Highness, the Royal Highness Esu Nupe, our revered father, and other traditional rulers that are here, the Executive Director, Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, Mr. Clement Nwanko, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I had wanted to be here on my personal capacity in order to tell how ready we are, the Senate Committee on the Review of the Constitution, which I chair, how ready we are in our quest to make sure that we have a seamless constitutional review exercise with our counterparts in the House of Representatives. But the plan as well was also for Senate President to be here personally. But he's currently engaged in an official duty somewhere. So I am here on his behalf. I'm standing for him. And as such, I'm going to read his speech instead of reading mine. Otherwise, I would have read mine and go ahead to have him read his, but it's unfortunate that he's not here. But I'm standing for him. His speech goes as follows. Having inaugurated the counterpart Senate Committee on this very important task of amending the 1999 Constitution, I feel honored to be a special guest of honor for the inauguration of the Committee of the House of Representatives on the same task. As we inaugurate the House Representatives Committee on the amendments of the 1999 Constitution, we are reminded of the profound responsibility that rests upon our shoulders as legislators of the people. This committee's task is not just a matter of legal review, but is a duty to enhance the framework that governs our collective aspirations, rights, and duties as citizens of this great country. It is an important opportunity to reinforce the pillars of democracy, justice, and equity that our nation stands on. The amendments we are set to deliberate upon carry the potential to shape our country's future, to make our governance more inclusive, our institutions more robust, and our society more equitable. It is a testament to our commitment to listening to the voices of our people and ensuring that our Constitution reflects the evolving dynamics of our society. As we embark on this critical endeavor, let us be guided by the principles of transparency, inclusivity, and diligence. Let us engage in discussions with open minds and a spirit of collaboration, recognizing that each perspective brought to the table enriches our collective decision-making process. The task ahead is challenging, yet I have no doubt that this committee, with its diverse expertise and dedication, is more than capable of rising to the occasion. Let us proceed with a clear vision and firm resolve to strengthen the foundations of our democracy for the present and future generations. Now that the committee of both houses have been duly constituted, let us begin the task with every seriousness that it demands. and come up with amendments that satisfy the wishes and aspirations of our people. Getting the citizens to speak their minds on the areas of amendments is a great task we must accomplish in this onerous engagement. I wish the committee success over the changes that our work will bring about on our nation. May our efforts contribute to a more just, prosperous, and united Nigeria. Thank you for listening.
Another resounding applause for the Deputy President of the Senate. Standing in for the President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio. Thank you very much, sir. Very quickly, we welcome you, distinguished Senator Onyeka Chinwe-Ebonyi, Deputy Majority Whip of the Senate. We welcome you, sir. We also recognize Right Honorable Babangida Nguroje, former Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, Lois Auta, NDWD, Mr. Jake Ekpele, TAF Africa. We'd like to welcome all of you, members of civil society organizations that are here. Moving on very quickly, it is then pertinent at this juncture to ask that everyone please be seated, relax, and as we take the inaugural lecture, we're moving on very quickly. The inaugural lecture is very important for us to please put pens to paper as we sit down and listen to this inaugural. Prof, please do not block the thoroughfare so he can find his way here very easily. Professor Dakas, CJ Dakas, SAN.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm very delighted to be here this afternoon and to have the honor and privilege of addressing a very important subject. The topic that I have been asked to address is resolving Nigeria's constitution question. Resolving Nigeria's constitution question. The topic itself presupposes that a question mark hangs over the Nigerian constitution. And what then is that question mark? This invariably arises from the preamble to the Nigerian constitution, which states that the constitution was made by we, the people. And for those who are familiar with the context in which the 1999 Constitution emerged, the question that invariably arises is whether there is a legitimacy deficit that we confront. There's a great deal of debate about that, and I wouldn't have, unfortunately, the privilege of the time to address that question. But I think what is critical is that, as the Nigerian Constitution rightly points out in Section 14, subsection 2A, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through the Constitution, derives all its authority and power. And if the Nigerian Constitution is made by we, the people, then it becomes imperative that the Nigerian people are front and center, that the Nigerian people are at the heart of Nigeria's constitutional experience. And it also means that in the context of this constitutional amendment exercise, we are conscious of that imperative. In his remarks this morning, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives and Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Constitutional Review made a very fundamental clarion call to what he calls bold and decisive action. And it invariably follows that in the context of the exercise that is unfolding, all the mandate bearers must be bold and decisive. So in terms of the question of legitimacy of the Constitution, clearly the reality is that there is a recurring debate about the legitimacy of the Nigerian Constitution, and this has generated contentions, contestations, and clarion calls for amendments. There are those who have argued, for instance, that members of the National Assembly are not competent to make fundamental alterations to the Constitution or to make fundamental changes to its fundamental structures and fundamental principles. There's a great deal of debate about that, and part of the reason why that question arises is that quite apart from the context in which the Constitution emerged, there is also the fact that the Nigerian Constitution in Section 9 does not address the question of a referendum. This is something that perhaps over the course of time you might need to engage in the context of constitutional amendment. I would like to focus on results, and therefore I would like to engage the experiences that we have had, especially since 2010, when, as Clement Wanko pointed out, we had the very first alteration exercise. And I've had the privilege of being part of this process at certain points in time, and I'd like to focus on some of the experiences over the course of time. Of course, we're familiar that from 2010 we have had alterations from numbers 1 to the last exercise, which was number 5 alteration. And my expectation is that we will now have a 6th alteration that will be very profound in its outcome. So what are some of the lessons? Because I like to focus on results. What are some of the lessons that we need to learn from the previous exercises so that we have optimal performance? And the very first is the fact that you must be strategic in planning and commence early. And I'm very happy that the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives has indicated that you have given yourselves a timeline of 24 months. This is very critical for 3 major reasons. The first is that there might be a number of amendments that have implications for the conduct of the 2027 elections. And the sooner you are over and done with that aspect of the amendment, the easier it is for the Independent National Electoral Commission to better prepare for the 2027 elections. The second reason is that if you don't get over and done with this in good time, the more it drags to the 2027 elections, the more the likelihood that the honorable members and the senators will be looking at every item through a political lens. And the third is that if you drag this to the 2027 elections, the likelihood is that electioneering campaigns now become the order of the day, and you won't have the attention and focus that you need in order to constructively engage the Constitution Amendment exercise. The second, drawing from my experience in previous exercises, and I'm glad again that the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives has underscored this fact, is that you need to build consensus. Nigeria is a very diverse country, and it is extremely critical that we build consensus. And as a matter of fact, if you need to amend the Constitution, there are some aspects of the Constitution that require a threshold of 2/3. But there are some of them that require a threshold of 4/5. And so if you don't build consensus in a spirit of give and take, then it will be very difficult for us to achieve our goals. The third lesson is that you must be prepared to walk across party lines. This National Assembly is probably the most diverse in terms of the representation of different political parties. And you must be prepared to walk across party lines, and in doing so, you must focus on the national interest. And focusing on the national interest means that you must be deliberate in avoiding political grandstanding and brinkmanship. I would urge all of you to be driven by the courage of your convictions and in the overarching interest of the Nigerian state. And when it comes to the subject of courage, I often reference the statement attributed to a former senator of the United States, Senator John McCain. And John McCain says that courage is not the absence of fear, but the capacity for action in spite of our fears. Over the course of this exercise, you may be called upon to take bold and decisive action that requires courage and the courage of your convictions. The fourth point is the imperative of stakeholder engagement. And I'm very delighted that part of what we are going to be doing today is citizenship engagement. And engagement is very critical because the people are at the heart of the exercise. And therefore, the exercise must be people-centered. You must feel the pulse of the people, and you must give expression to the interest of the people. In this respect, working with your counterparts in the Senate, it will become very critical to engage with civil society, to engage with traditional rulers, some of whom are here, to engage with religious leaders, to engage with the media, to engage with political parties and other critical stakeholders in the Nigerian project. I would like to also say, and this is lesson number 5, strategy is key. Because without strategy, this becomes really an exercise that is not focused. And one of the things that we learned in the course of previous exercises is that you might find that there are a number of bills in respect of which there is consensus, and yet there are others that are very contentious. And what we have learned in previous exercises is that where you have reached consensus in respect of some key issues, you should have separate standalone bills in respect of those issues. Because if you lump them with the very contentious issues, the likelihood is that you pass it in the House of Representatives and you get stuck in the Senate and vice versa, or you pass it in the National Assembly and by the time you get to the state, you are confronted with challenges there, or you are able to get this passed all through these processes, and yet you find that there is a challenge at the level of presidential accent. The 6th lesson is that there must be synergy between the two chambers of the National Assembly. As you would recall, in the course of one of the earlier constitutional amendment exercises, there was a joint National Assembly committee on the review of the Constitution. And there were questions about who would chair the session. The Senate said, well, we will chair the session. The House of Representatives said, we will chair the session. And at the end of the day, it took a long time before this was resolved, and we now had co-chairs of the committee. And so it is important that there is synergy. Because in the context of constitutional amendment, both chambers of the National Assembly have co-equal powers. And it is important that you work in a symbiotic manner to achieve your goals. Lesson number 7, and this is extremely critical, is that you must have strategic engagement with your colleagues at the state assemblies. As you know, members of the state houses of assembly have a role to play in this respect. And in the last exercise, we had a major challenge. And I think that that challenge was unprecedented. After members of the National Assembly were over and done with the exercise, and I recall as a lead consultant to the House of Representatives Committee on Constitutional Review, that speakers of state houses of assembly were invited for an interactive session with the National Assembly committees. But then it turned out that by the time the National Assembly was over and done with its exercise, and the bills were transmitted to state houses of assembly, something unprecedented happened. The Conference of Speakers, and I'm glad that the chairman of the Conference of Speakers of state houses of assembly is here, the Conference of Speakers now wrote back to the National Assembly and said they were not going to take any further legislative action in respect of the bills transmitted to them for concurrence unless their own priority bills were passed by the National Assembly. And as you would recall, those of you who followed that development, there was quite a bit of challenge between the National Assembly. I recall that the Deputy Senate President and the Deputy Speaker of the House of the 9th Assembly addressed a press conference. And so we had a back and forth that unfortunately impeded the action that was needed in respect of that exercise. And so I'm glad that very early in the day, and as the Speaker of the Oyo State House of Assembly, who is the chairman of the Conference of Speakers, has rightly indicated, it is a very welcome development that very early in the day you're already engaging the state houses of assembly. And my hope is that you will have synergy in terms of your actions going forward. The eighth lesson is that you must have periodic consultation and partnership with the executive. At the state level, on paper, there is no specific role for state governors, but we all know that governors wield considerable influence over what happens in respect of this exercise at the state level. And therefore, you must find some way of feeling the pulse of the executive. And at the federal level, of course, the reality is that you may go through the entire gamut of the exercise, and by the time it gets to the president, you find that there is a veto. You would recall that in the 9th Assembly, as many as 36 bills for constitutional amendment were passed at the National Assembly and at the level of the state assemblies. These went to Mr. President, and if my recollection is correct, only 16 of them were assented to by Mr. President. And the current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then assented to one other one that has to do with the judiciary in terms of the uniform retirement age. So, feeling the pulse of the executive over the course of the exercise is critical. Number 9, you must be deliberate in countering the narrative that these exercises are simply annual rituals and money-spinning jamborees. As a matter of fact, as recently as yesterday, when I told one of my colleagues that I was going to be addressing this gathering today, he said one of the things you must emphasize is that there is a general perception, rightly or wrongly, that these are just hollow exercises. Now, how do you engage that? For those of us that have been part of this process, we know that that is not correct. But it means that you must be deliberate in a robust media engagement to get the people to appreciate the relevance of this exercise. But one of the most significant ways through which you can counter that narrative is to deliver results. If you deliver results in a manner that is profound, and as the Deputy Speaker pointed out, if you are bold and decisive, then of course you will be able to demonstrate to the Nigerian people that this exercise is worth it. The 10th point is, and I think this also comes out of the speech made by the Deputy Speaker, is the need for impact assessment. I give you an example. In the 9th Assembly, one of the signature accomplishments was the devolution of powers in respect of correctional services, in respect of rails, in respect of power, and yet, almost a year afterwards, we are not seeing significant effort to domesticate these initiatives at the state level. And you need, at the level of this committee and at the level of the National Assembly in total, to take stock, undertake an impact assessment so that it provides you a compass for action going forward. And you need to constructively engage with the sub-nationals so that you are able to collaborate with them in order to ensure that the work that you have done is given effect to at the subnational level. The 11th lesson, and the last on this, is that you must set your eyes on the crowning glory. At the end of this exercise, you must be able to say to yourselves, what is the crowning glory? In other words, what is the signature accomplishment of this exercise? I give you a few examples. In respect of the 8th Assembly, the signature accomplishment of that assembly in respect of constitutional amendment was in relation to the not too young to run amendment. Now, whether that has translated into greater representation of younger people in the National Assembly is a different question. In respect of the 9th Assembly, I believe that the signature accomplishments were the devolution of powers in respect of power, rail, correctional services, as I have pointed out, but also the financial independence of state legislatures and state judiciaries. And I think that these are very critical, and we need to keep this in mind. So, as I wind down, for the 10th Assembly, at the end of this exercise, what will be your signature accomplishment that inspires confidence in the Nigerian people? Is it going to be in the area of devolution, of power, of policing power? And I know, for instance, that the Deputy Speaker and some other members of the National Assembly have sponsored a bill on the subject of devolution of policing. Is that going to be your signature accomplishment? I'm aware that in the 9th Assembly, this was almost passed. But I recall that when we had a joint meeting of the House of Representatives Committee and the Senate Committee, there was apprehension on the part of members of the National Assembly that there was the likelihood of abuse of the state police by the state governors. And that apprehension truncated this exercise at the National Assembly level. Now here we are, and it turns out that one of the counter demands of the speakers of the state houses of assembly was actually in relation to devolution of policing powers. And we need to find a way of addressing this. If you are able to address this with the profundity that is required, it may well be one of your signature accomplishments. The other issue is the gender mainstreaming bills. I recall that there were at least 3 significant bills that had to do with the question of gender, and Clement Nwanko underscored this in his remarks. This is something I would urge you to take a second look at, and it may well be one of your signature accomplishments. Or is it going to be the subject of the administrative and financial independence of local governments? You would recall that this was passed, and then it was quite a challenge at the level of the states. So, focus on the bigger picture. What is the crowning glory, and what will be your signature accomplishments? If I had the luxury of time, I would reel out some other issues that I believe you need to engage, but I don't have that privilege. But let me make a general appeal to Nigerians. Nigerians need to get involved in this exercise and be deeply invested in the vitality of our democratic institutions. As I close, I want to challenge all of you, members of the National Assembly, to rise to the occasion. I go back to what the Deputy Speaker said in his remarks, which was a call to bold and decisive action. You have been tasked with the responsibility of resolving the Constitution question. This is a mandate that the Constitution reposes in you and other mandate bearers. And the question I'm going to leave you with, are you willing and determined to write your names in gold in the annals of Nigeria's constitutional history? I thank you for your kind attention.
Indeed, when you hear a man that knows his onions, it shows, doesn't it? You have been listening to a man who was former Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, Plateau State, who is the Inauguration Committee lecturer for today, Professor Dakas, C.J. Dakas, and he has delivered the goods within the time that he has been given. He has spoken about how if he had more time, he would have delivered more to us. Consensus building, robust media engagement. What would be your impact when the time comes? Cerebral, analytical, brimming with that Nigerianness, which is sheer brilliance, the one we know, not the ones that we hear about. The fact that Nigerians are just some of the most brilliant people. Please, let's hear a round of applause for Professor Dakas, C.J. Dakas. I'd like at this point to salute our esteemed traditional rulers who are still here with us. We thank you, sirs, for being here with us. Civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, who have stayed with us, and our virtual audience. Please be mindful of the citizens' engagement. The citizens' engagement is very key to the entire Constitutional Review Committee. Stakeholders' engagement is important, and this particular citizens' engagement I'm made to understand by the chairman of the committee, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, is the first step of the committee's work, and they are looking forward to robust intervention. It is at this time that I would like to invite to speak to us at this event the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas.
the President of the Senate, ably represented by the Deputy Senate President, my brother, Senator Barrow Jibril, my brother, the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, who is incidentally the chairman of this Constitutional Review Committee, the principal officers of NAS, both Senate and House, the executive governors present here, distinguished senators and members of the National Assembly present here, the chairman, APC, ably represented by the secretary of the party, chairman and members of the Conference of Speakers of the State Legislatures of Nigeria present here, former presiding officers of the House of Reps, I could see my colleagues from this side, former presiding, the SGF ably represented by Mr. Ibrahim Oyedeji Nureini, who is the Director of Legal Services, the members of the Federal Executive Council present here, the Inspector General of Police, the Chairman, Police Service Commission, the Chairman and members and management of the National Assembly Service Commission, the CNA and management of the National Assembly, members of the diplomatic corps, our highly respected traditional rulers present here, development and technical partners, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Today marks yet another significant moment in our democratic journey towards a more perfect union. The inauguration of the House Committee on the Review of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, is not just a ritual, but a reflection of our collective resolve to ensure that the foundational document of our democracy evolves to meet the aspiration of all Nigerians. Our population in 1999 was about 120 million. However, by 2023, we had exceeded 220 million. These rapid changes underscore the need to continuously transform the Constitution into a living and transformative document. I'm delighted to welcome the Senate President and our invited guests and development partners who have come to witness this very important national assignment. Since our inauguration on the 30th June 2023, the House expressed its commitments to continuous law reform. Specifically, our legislative agenda identified streamlining and improving the constitutional reform process as a cardinal objective. In this regard, the House is already working on a Constitution Alteration Procedure Bill to provide a framework and timeline for the passage of Constitution Alteration Bills by the National Assembly and adoption by State Houses of Assembly. The early commencement of Constitution review activities by the 10th House is yet another step towards actualizing our agenda. The composition of the committee is representative, comprising one member from each of the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. It is chaired by the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, while the House Leader, Honorable Professor Julius Hoveri, is the committee's Deputy Chairman. To ensure greater inclusion, the committee will also have 6 additional women, female representatives, women of the House, who each one of them will represent a geopolitical zone, and all other female members will be co-opted on advisory basis to deepen their inclusion. Similarly, the House Zonal Caucus leaders have also been co-opted in an advisory capacity to advise the committee on issues relating to their respective zones. Lastly, the committee secretariat will also include a representative of people living with disabilities to ensure that their concerns are properly accommodated. The mandate of the committee is to receive and consider proposals for alteration of the 1999 Constitution, create a forum for stakeholders and the public to make inputs into the review process, and collaborate with the Senate and the State Houses of Assembly as required by law. As we inaugurate the CRC, it is essential to acknowledge the journey Nigeria has embarked upon since the return to democracy in 1999. Our country has witnessed significant milestones and challenges alike. Through each phase, our democracy has been tested and is still being challenged. Yet, even after 25 years, it stands resilient, reinforced by our collective belief in the principles of freedom, equality, and justice for all. The 1999 Constitution, as the supreme law of the land, has been the ground norm of our democracy for over 2 decades. Yet, like any great edifice, it requires periodic assessment and review to ensure it meets the changing needs and aspirations of our people. While some citizens argue that the document should be entirely discarded, it is important to remember that democratic consolidation can only be incremental and gradual. Even more mature democracies have accepted this position in advancing democratic consolidations. For instance, the United States has ratified more than 27 amendments to its constitution. Since the inception of the Fourth Republic, the Constitution has been subjected to 5 alterations with landmark changes that have strengthened our democratic institutions, federalism, and governance generally. The first and second alterations provided for the financial independence of the National Assembly, an independent National Electoral Commission, and granted the Supreme Court jurisdiction on appeals from the Court of Appeal on the election of governors and their deputies. The third and fourth alterations, among others, established the National Industrial Court under the Constitution as a superior court of record and provided for the funding of the houses of assemblies of states directly from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state. Under the Ninth Assembly, the fifth alteration made some of the most far-reaching amendments. It clarified and reinforced financial autonomy for states' houses of assembly and judiciary, decongested the executive list, defined guidelines for the first session, and inauguration of members-elect of the national and states' houses of assembly, and deleted reference to the provisions of the Criminal Code, Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Act, Criminal Procedure Code, or Evidence Act, among others. All this made the fifth alteration the most extensive since 1999. Right, honorable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we expect the sixth alteration under this 10th National Assembly to be the most comprehensive yet. As such, the task before the Constitutional Review Committee is profound. The House agenda is ambitious in its scope and encompasses wide-ranging issues pivotal to our national growth. Among these are the devolution of powers, including state policing, enhancement of fiscal federalism through local government autonomy, further decongesting the exclusive legislative list, recognizing and assigning constitutional roles for traditional institutions, and promoting inclusivity, particularly greater gender equity and women representation into appointive and elective positions. Regarding the latter, I employed this committee to align its work with the legislative agenda. I urge you to revisit the issue of additional or reserved seats for women across legislative bodies. Training in joint tickets and conferring citizenship on foreigners married to Nigerian women. Other critical areas for your consideration include implementing comprehensive electoral reforms to address the gaps identified in the aftermath of the 2023 general elections, strengthening the enforceability of legislative instruments, and institutional strengthening for greater accountability, among others. These areas are crucial for reinforcing our democracy and ensuring that the governance structure meets the needs and aspirations of all Nigerians. Several bills have already been introduced in both the Senate and the House, touching on some of these very important issues. I encourage members of the committee and all Nigerians not to shy away from the complexities and the debates that will arise during this process. Instead, let us embrace them as vital components of a vibrant democracy. These discussions and disagreements are not signs of weakness, but rather indications of our strength and diversity. They remind us that we are a nation of many voices, each with something valuable to contribute to our collective future. However, in making recommendations and proposals that potentially have far-reaching impacts, such as state police, I strongly recommend that we adopt a scientific approach grounded in empirical evidence rather than ideology, personal beliefs, or political expediency. I also challenge us to go beyond traditional and generic prescriptions and explore gradualism in lawmaking with the understanding that social change can be achieved in small, discrete increments rather than in abrupt strokes or grand solutions. This gradual process will allow us to pilot innovative solutions, engage in meaningful experimentation, and gather concrete data and facts to inform our decisions. Also, this approach ensures that reforms are not only reflective, but also adapted to the unique needs and challenges of our great nation. Through this careful and considered process, we can achieve sustainable and impactful changes for the good of our country and all Nigerians. The methodology to be adopted by this Constitutional Review Committee will emphasize inclusivity, transparency, and collaboration. From the onset, we shall work closely with the executive arm, both at the federal and subnational levels. This partnership stems from recognizing their pivotal role in governance, ensuring that our review process is comprehensive and considers the practical aspects of implementation. Equally, the process will involve states House of Assembly to foster consensus and expedite adoption by states. But more importantly, the process will be deeply rooted in engaging with the Nigerian people at all levels, including traditional and religious institutions, pressure groups and trade unions, ethno-religious organizations, the diaspora community, and much more. Your insights, experiences, and aspirations will be the cornerstone of this review. We intend to harness the inputs of all Nigerians at all levels, at all levels and at the level of all our local governments through open forum interactions, public consultations, and digital platforms, ensuring that every voice is heard and considered. As we embark on the essential task of constitutional review, the House has adopted a strategy of timely commencement. This proactive approach is designed to ensure, through engagement and deliberation, by starting early, we aim to facilitate comprehensive review process, allowing ample time for robust public engagements, detailed analysis, and thoughtful consideration of proposals for amendments. This approach also ensures that the review is concluded in good time and avoids some of the setbacks experienced in the past, occasioned by late commencements. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while the constitutional amendment process is both costly and laden with contentious issues, the benefits far outweigh the challenges. It is an opportunity to address the pressing issues that have emerged in our polity, to close gaps in our legal systems, and to strengthen the foundation of our democracy. As such, I urge all members of the Committee on Constitutional Review, and indeed all Nigerians, to approach this exercise with an open mind, a spirit of patriotism, and a commitment to the greater good. Our goal should not be to win arguments, but to build consensus, to not just amend laws, but to forge a more unified, just, and prosperous Nigeria. I commend everyone involved in this endeavor, especially my Deputy, Right Honorable Benjamin Okezekalu, House Leader Professor Julius Hevere, and all members of this committee, the Secretariat, and all our partners. May your deliberations be guided by wisdom, fairness, and a deep duty to our country. Together, we can achieve a constitution that not only addresses our current challenges, but also anticipates the future needs of our great nation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I will require all members of the review committee to please rise for the inauguration. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to formally inaugurate the Committee on Constitutional Review of the 10th House of Representatives for the service of our nation. Thank you very much as we pray that God may continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Another resounding applause for the Speaker, House of Representatives, the Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, PhD. We appreciate you. He has gone ahead to inaugurate.
This is Channels Television. You've been watching the inauguration and citizens' engagement of the House of Representatives Committee on Constitution Review at the Congress Hall, Transco Hilton Hotel, Abuja. We now return to our regular programming.
Coming up on Network Africa. West African Regional Group, ECOWAS, lifts sanctions imposed on the Republic of Niger, Mali, and Guinea. At least 15 worshippers killed in Burkina Faso after gunmen attacked a community in the northern region. Plus, South Africa's ruling African National Congress launched their manifesto ahead of general elections in May. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin here in West Africa. The Economic Community of West African States has resolved to immediately lift some of the sanctions it imposed on the Republic of Niger, Mali, and Guinea after their democratic governments in the countries were overthrown. The organization had imposed sanctions on these countries